This video is sponsored by Normandy 1998. We resume with Ash and Gary as they are passing through the Coronet Highlands near Mount Coronet. As per their plan, they have been lying low for the most part to protect the Shieldon, though now that they're here, Gary cannot resist at least getting a glimpse of a place once known as the Sacred Plaza, which is said to house some of Sinnoh's oldest ruins. Laughing that Gary's a lot like his grandpa, Ash agrees, figuring that not many people will be visiting an old ruin, so it's not likely to draw the attention of Hunter J. However, to their great surprise, when they arrive, they see that a big crowd is gathered round to watch Champion Cynthia battle someone, though this shock is nothing compared to what the boys feel when they discover the identity of Cynthia's opponent. It's Paul. Briefly forgetting their plan, Ash and Gary both rush to join the crowd, watching as Paul's Torterra is defeated by Cynthia's Garchomp, bringing the battle to an end. Scowling, Paul then turns to leave, though he is stopped when Ash calls out, stating that the Pokemon Center isn't that way, and he needs to get his Pokemon healed before he does anything. Coldly, Paul tells Ash to butt out, asking what he's doing here anyway, though when he says the Cantonian boy's name, Cynthia makes a small intrigued noise, before asking if he's Ash Ketchum from Pallet Town. Looking a little nonplussed, Ash replies that he is, with the champ smiling that she heard about him from Lucian, adding that he spoke quite highly of the boy's skill as a battler, something that only seems to astound Paul as he demands to know why Ash was battling a member of the Elite Four. Shrugging a little, Ash replies that he's battled a few actually, recounting his matches with Mr. Moore, Drake and Sydney, while grinning they were all a lot of fun, though he wishes he'd been able to battle more of them back in the Hoenn League. By now Paul looks as though he's seen a ghost, while beside his companion, Gary chuckles that though he doesn't look it, Ashy Boy is a league winner, something even he couldn't accomplish. From the look in Paul's eyes, this is something he and Gary have in common, with the purple-haired boy being at a loss for words as he looks at Ash with new eyes. He'd always thought the Cantonian was just another loudmouth without a clue, but this news changes everything, as he was able to achieve his victory through methods so much like Reggie's, while he, Paul, has yet to even crack the top 8 in a league conference. This will require some thought. Seeing the turmoil in Paul's eyes, Cynthia comments that Ash and Paul seem like good rivals, since a rival can force a trainer to re-evaluate their perspective in a way no one else can, adding that with time, she has no doubt the two boys will help each other rise to incredible heights. At last it seems that Ash and Paul have found something they can agree on, their skepticism about the idea of helping each other. Though wisely, Gary tells Ash not to be so dismissive, reminding him how they helped each other grow back in the day, even if they didn't always get along. Clapping her hands in delight at this backup, Cynthia comments that she sees what Professor Rowan meant when she called the young oak astute, with Gary looking a little surprised the champion knows who he is. Smiling, Cynthia replies that she's heard a lot about him from the professor, and though the blustery old buffer would never admit it, she believes he's quite fond of Gary. Gary isn't quite sure what to say to this, and so letting him think, Cynthia returns her attention to Ash and Paul, stating that her point can be best summarized by the stone tablet found right here in these ruins. She then leads them a bit further into where a large tablet stands sentinel, before beginning to read the engraving upon it. When every life meets another life, something will be born. Looking back at the boys, Cynthia politely asks if they understand what she means yet, and while Ash says that he doesn't really, Paul says nothing, instead bidding them all goodbye as he heads off, this time in the direction of the Pokemon Center. Scowling, Ash huffs that this is just like Paul, storming off and being a grouch, though here Gary disagrees, saying he believes Paul's reflecting and just needs some time alone to sort through his thoughts, commenting that he had a similar experience after watching Ash in the Viridian Gym, and then again seeing him surpass him at the Indigo Plateau, before adding that he wouldn't be surprised if next time they meet, it is with a very different Paul. With this said, the boys decide to get back on the road, with Gary wanting to make tracks after perhaps foolishly exposing the existence of the shield onto a crowd of people. Though, before they go, Ash promises Cynthia that he will ascend to those heights she was talking about, and when he does, he'll battle her, a promise the blonde-haired champion grins that she'll hold him to, as she also departs. Following this, a stand-up sit-down and Electrite company is skipped, due to the absence of Dawn and Brock respectively, while Malice in Wonderland is averted due to them being ahead of their canon schedule at Gary's insistence. As a result, the next real event of note happens when during a lunch break, one of the Shieldon goes wandering off on its own, having become a close friend of the fossilized foursome, as well as their pseudo-bodyguard. Armaldo is quick to notice this, bringing it to Ash's attention at once, so that he and Gary can go after the missing Shieldon and make sure it doesn't get lost or hurt. Thankfully, the pair are able to catch up to it before too long, finding it overlooking a steep cliff where a terrified Hippopotas is cowering. Understanding that Shieldon must have heard the trapped ground type's cries, Ash praises it, before telling Gary to help him rescue Hippopotas, with the pair of boys creating a pulley system with ropes that allows Ash to scale the cliff and recover the scared Pokemon, even if at first it is a bit hesitant to trust the human. However, thanks to Pikachu's comforting presence, Ash is able to win the Hippo Pokemon over, with he and Gary promptly pulling it back to safety, though now they're left with the question of what to do with it. Fortunately, they are not left to wander for long, as they are soon approached by a group who introduce themselves as the cast and crew of the television program Sinnoh Now, with the host Rhonda explaining that they were filming the migration of a herd of Hippopotas and Hippowdon, though when this little guy got separated, they decided to film it instead. Excitedly, Ash asks if that means they know where the herd is, with Rhonda assuring them they do, and promising to be with them every step of the way to film the touching reunion. This prospect worries Gary, as the last thing he wants is for the Shieldon and their location to be broadcast across all of Sinnoh, though thankfully this is not a problem, as when Hippopotas recognizes them as the humans who were watching it struggle but never helped, it uses Yawn on them, causing them all to pass out, thus allowing Ash, Gary and their Pokemon to slip away. Following Rhonda's directions, the gang head towards a nearby desert, though naturally nothing can be so easy, as Team Rocket have decided to steal Hippopotas for themselves, and feeling more persistent than usual, they try not once, but 3 times to nab the ground type. First, attempting to lure it onto their balloon with bait on a fishing line, then later attempting to catch it in a net while the group are crossing a bridge, and finally posing as roadside sand traders to trick it into crawling into a bag of sand. Each time Ash is there to stop the trio of crooks, and in doing so, earns a bit more of Hippopotas' trust, so that when they reach the desert and it comes time to say goodbye, there are tears in the little hippo's eyes. Comfortingly, Ash assures it that he's sure they'll meet again someday, though until then, it should do its best to get strong, so that if it ever gets separated from its family again, it'll be able to look after itself. Finding heart in this, Hippopotas at last heads back to its herd, and as Ash waves goodbye, he feels Gary's hand on his shoulder, a silent affirmation that he did the right thing, even if it hurts to say goodbye to a friend. A few days after this, while traveling once more under the shadow of Mount Coronet, Gary receives a long overdue call from Professor Rowan, informing him that the nature preserve is ready, meaning he can finally bring the Shieldon to their new home. This delights both Gary and Ash, with the latter letting out an excited cheer. Though looking grave, Rowan warns the boys not to get complacent, since he's heard rumors that Pokemon hunted Jays in the area, and if her intel's as good as it seems, she will know this is her last chance to get her hands on the fossil Pokemon, meaning she'll be more determined than ever. Nodding their understanding, the Pallet Town pair promise to stay on their guard, then after exchanging farewells with Rowan, end the call. Meanwhile, huddled in a nearby bush, Team Rocket are deep in conversation. While they had planned to jump out and grab Pikachu, now they have bigger core fish to fry, namely getting payback on that grey-haired goon Hunter Jay for kidnapping Meowth. However, before they can come up with one of their trademark schemes, they are forced to scatter as one of the Pokemon Hunter's armored trucks comes tearing through the brush, with the snarling of its engines alerting Ash and Gary to its presence. Thinking fast, Gary brings out both Blastoise and Electivire, with him having his starter blanket the vehicle in water before his electric Oni shocks it, thus causing the truck's systems to overload, bringing it to a screeching halt. Capitalizing on this, Gary, Ash and the Pokemon use this opportunity to flee, with them heading east towards the mountain until they come across a stream whose currents are too intense to ford. Thankfully, Gary has a plan for how to turn this to their advantage, suggesting they have Blastoise, Buizel and Armaldo carry them all down river to the preserve where Professor Rowan will be waiting. Grinning, Ash calls his old rival a genius, while bringing out his pair of swimmers, though it seems fate will not be so kind, as a moment later, the 2 grunts from the truck come bursting through the foliage, their eyes locked squarely on the Shieldon, while a pair of angry Golbat flap at their sides. Knowing they're out of time, Ash urges Gary to go on without him, while instructing Armaldo to carry the Shieldon on its back, since they'll feel safe with it. Then, as his friends make their way into the stream, he and Buizel turn back to face the goons, ready to battle and buy time. Looking to Pikachu, Ash prepares to ask his starter to fight alongside Buizel, planning to make use of the same water-electric combo as Gary, though before he can, Larvitar bursts from its ball, having seemingly sensed the presence of poachers. Knowing how much this means to the Rock-Skin Pokemon, Ash decides to go with it instead, having Buizel use Sonic Boom, while Larvitar uses Hidden Power, with something interesting as the 2 moves meet, as they seem to fuse, transforming into a larger and even more powerful Sonic Boom, which is able to strike both Golbat. Briefly, Ash thinks back to what Jay had said about Larvitar's hidden power typing, now having a hunch about what it is. Though all the same, this is hardly the time to be worrying about such things, as with a cry, he hears Larvitar use Bite on one of the downed Golbat, while Buizel strikes the other with Aqua Jet. This is more than enough to dispatch the pair of grunts, though in spite of their loss, they laugh, jeering that these foolish brats have fallen into Commander Jay's trap, as their job here was to funnel the Shieldon downstream, since then there'll be nowhere to run. Unfortunately, this proves true, as at that moment a short distance away, Jay enters the picture, swooping down on a Salamence, and having the Dragon-type fire a Hyper Beam at Gary and Blastoise from above. At such an angle, and with no forewarning, there is little the Cantonian researcher and his partner can do beyond swerve slightly, so they are only hit by the aftershock of the blast, rather than the beam itself. However, this still has enough force to blow them both out of the water, and as they land hard on the bank, Gary yells at Armaldo to keep going and get the Shieldon to safety. Nodding, Armaldo picks up the pace, making full use of its aquatic hunting abilities to tear off. Though ever persistent, Jay and Salamence give chase, with the Pokemon hunter soon closing in. Then, just as Armaldo sees the bend in the river that should lead to the preserve, it feels its entire body freeze, as it and its 4 friends are struck by a blast from Jay's wrist launcher, trapping them in place, and making it easy for Salamence to descend and grab them all in its claws, while its rider cackles that it looks like she's got herself a little bonus, as she'll make a mint selling off this rare Armaldo too. She then takes off once more into the sky, while below her, Gary laments not having any flying types to follow. However, this is when a trio of all too familiar voices pipe up, with Team Rocket asking who needs flying types when they have a balloon, before offering to form a truce, since the enemy of their enemy is their friend, and from the looks of it, everyone here is Hunter Jay's enemy. Meanwhile, Jay and Salamence have just passed over Ash's position, with the boy spotting not only the shield on, but his Armaldo caught in their sinister clutches. Refusing to allow any of them to be kidnapped and sold, he gives chase, screaming for Jay to give his friends back, though it is no use, as Salamence's flying speed far exceeds his running speed. Then, to seemingly make matters worse, a truck pulls up in front of Ash, blocking his way, and while at first he thinks it's more poachers, he soon recognizes the driver as Professor Rowan, with the old man telling him to get in, since they'll make better time this way. Nodding gratefully, Ash and Pikachu hop in, with them raising Buizel and Larvitar's Pokeballs to return them, though while Buizel does as is told, Larvitar refuses, clearly too agitated to rest, until it knows that Jay has been thwarted and its friends are safe. Giving the rock ground type a sympathetic look, Ash tells it to hop in then, and as Larvitar perches itself on Ash's other shoulder, the 4-wheel drive tears off in hot pursuit of Hunter Jay. As they go, Rowan explains that he saw Jay heading for the border of the preserve, and so came to try and drive her off, though it seems he was too late, while in turn, Ash recounts his and Gary's plan, while expressing concern for his friend, since he still doesn't know what Jay did to him in order to get her hands on the 5 fossils. In his gruff manner, Rowan assures Ash that Gary will be fine, before reminding him they need to keep their attention on the job at hand, something Ash says he can do, as he, Pikachu, and Larvitar stare up at the bronze statues of Armaldo and the Shieldon. Finally, Jay's flying fortress comes into view, though now it is grounded, with this being where Rowan breaks off pursuit, instead pulling off into a copse of trees that will hide them from view. Here Ash finds Officer Jenny as well as another of Rowan's aides waiting, with the professor giving them both a quick rundown while they watch Jay descend into the airship with her prizes in hand. Being young and impetuous, Ash wants to rush in, though sagely, Rowan advises they wait for a more opportune moment, perhaps creating a diversion, though before he can say more, he is cut off by his aide, who points skywards and asks if the professor means like that. Looking in the direction the aide is pointing, the group witnesses Team Rocket float into view while reciting their motto and demanding Jay hand over all her stolen Pokemon, since they've been doing the whole bad guy thing way longer, so they have dibs. More shockingly even than this, however, is who they have with them, as standing at the back of the balloon basket is none other than Gary, with his determined expression making it clear that he wants to get down to business rescuing the captured Pokemon just as much as Ash. While Hunter Jay can ignore these buffoons' taunts, she cannot ignore their blatant acts of aggression, as when their words fail to get a rise out of her, they have Cacnea and Gulp and open fire on the flying fortress with pin missiles and sludge attacks. Even Gary helps out, having Umbreon come forth and use Shadow Ball until Jay emerges on Salamence's back, at which point he recalls his evolution and leaps from the basket, just in time to avoid being sent blasting off alongside Team Rocket, courtesy of a Hyper Beam. Bringing out Arcanine and climbing onto its back, Gary then engages in a flamethrower clash, with the Lion Dog and Sinister Drake proving equal in power. However, this is not Gary's only trick, as gripping tight to his friend's fur, he has it bound into the air and strikes Salamence head-on with Takedown, before retreating, a clear homage to Ash's hit-and-run technique. As he had hoped, this baits Jay into following him further away from her ship and allies, while unintentionally also giving Ash just the opening he needs, as with Rowan's blessing, the raven-haired boy and his 2 Pokemon companions sprint towards the airship. Due to the main hatch being open so that the deployed trucks can return, it is simple enough for Ash to get inside. The hard part is staying hidden, as while Pikachu can shut out the security cameras, that still sends a clear signal to their enemy of where they are, even if they cannot tell who they are. As a result, it does not take long for them to zero in on Ash's location, with a contingent of 4 poachers ordering him to stand down and surrender his Pokemon as they attempt to box him in. However, this just stands as further proof that they really don't know who Ash is, as with a determined look, he orders Pikachu and Larvitar to show these guys what happens to people who treat Pokemon like commodities. At once, the duo go on the attack, with Pikachu shocking his 2 opponents into submission almost instantly, while Larvitar burrows through the ground, doing massive damage to the fortress's internal systems before bursting back out beneath his foes and sending them careening out a window. Having caught this thrashing on camera, Jay's goons decide not to bother to send more battlers, instead waiting for their boss to return. While down in the cargo hold, Ash at last locates Armaldo and the Shieldon, freeing them from stasis and urging them to follow him, since they gotta get out of here. Seeing no point in stealth anymore, Ash and his Pokemon then book it for the entrance, though as they step outside, they see a large shadow pass overhead, Hunter Jay. Having been alerted by her minions to Ash's arrival, she had seen Gary's diversion for what it was and disengaged, deciding instead to personally put a stop to the boy who had foiled her last time. In her cold, calculating voice, she orders Ash to give back her merchandise, though unsurprisingly he refuses, with this being all the provocation Jay needs to call for a flamethrower. At once, a torrent of flame rains down on the heroes, and though Ash attempts to put himself between the Pokemon and danger, one of his friends has other ideas, with Larvitar leaping into the air and taking the flame attack in everyone else's stead. It knows that it can endure this, though more than that, it wants to protect its friend, the boy who reunited with its mother and taught it to trust again, while also making this evil poacher pay for all her sins. This desire lights a fire in Larvitar, far hotter than any Salamence can produce, so that as the flames bathe it, it begins to glow white hot, its whole body changing, with it being reborn as a Pupitar. Touching down, Pupitar then gives Jay its fiercest glare, while behind it, Ash cheers for his newly evolved friend and pulls out his Pokédex to see if it's learned any new moves. Hearing Rock Slide among the options, Ash tells Pupitar to use that, and as a barrage of spectral rocks appear and batter the dragon, it lets out a roar of pain, while bucking in a manner that almost unseats its rider. Angrily, Jay snaps at her mount to shape up, while she aims her wrist launcher at Pupitar, determined now more than ever to catch it, though being ready for this, Ash has it use Rock Slide again, with it this time striking the gauntlet and causing it to short out, meaning Jay's favourite dirty trick is now unavailable to her. Seeing her advantages rapidly diminishing, the Pokemon Hunter attempts to make a getaway, ordering her ship into the air while having Salamence head for the entrance to the command bridge. However, before the dragon Pokemon can get too far, its path is cut off by a flamethrower, courtesy of Arcanine, as it and Gary come back into view, allowing Ash and Pupitar to land one last rock slide, with this being the definitive blow needed to knock Salamence out of the air. For the first time, something like fear enters Jay's eyes, as the two young trainers and their Pokemon bear down upon her, though it is nothing to the look she gets when Rowan, his aide and Officer Jenny arrive, with the policewoman placing the poacher under arrest, and vowing that she's going away for a long time after all she's done. Following this, Ash, Gary, Rowan and his assistant are at last able to transfer the shield onto the newly established nature preserve, with it being something of a tearful goodbye after so long together. Armaldo in particular is sad to see its little friends go, while in turn, Gary is preparing to say his own farewells to Ash, as his job will likely require him to stay here, meaning their days of travelling together are over. Recognizing the sadness in his protege's face, and knowing how much fun Gary has had with Ash, Rowan pulls the young oak aside, stating they need to talk about his next assignment. Professionally, Gary states that he's ready to do whatever the professor needs, to which Rowan replies that he'd like him to remain with Ash for a while longer and document the evolution of his Pokemon, such as any changes in strength or personality his Pupitar may exhibit, since will all be valuable field data for his studies into Pokemon evolution. Being a smart boy, Gary sees what Rowan is doing, though having no objections, he simply smiles, shakes his mentor's hand, and promises to get him lots of valuable data before heading off to join Ash. From here is only a week's walk to Hearthome City, with Ash and Gary being glad to be able to follow the main road again. Due to this, they make excellent time, arriving on the morning Fantina had intended to depart on her journey, with Ash quite literally getting in at the last second, just as she'd been about to lock the gym door and post her goodbye note. Being his usual dense self, Ash misses this, his desperation to get a new badge giving him tunnel vision, as he urgently requests that Fantina give him a battle right now. Luckily for him, the ghost specialist finds this youthful exuberance charming, and so agrees to grant his request, though since she still does want to get on the road while the day is young, she suggests they skip the standard format in favor of a double battle, something Ash has no objection to as he follows Fantina onto the battlefield. Taking his place in the challenges box, Ash asks Pikachu if he'd be game to battle, and offer the electric rodent is happy to accept, while from his belt, he pulls Weasel's ball, excited to at last give it its gym debut. Nodding approvingly, Fantina calls them an earnest-looking pair, before bringing out her own Pokemon, Drifloon and Miss Magus. Being unfamiliar with either, Ash pulls out his Pokédex, with him quickly learning that they are both ghost types, while Drifloon also possesses the flying typing, a fact the boy figures he can exploit by telling Pikachu to open with a Thunderbolt. As expected, this deals super effective damage, with Fantina frowning, though not out of any frustration for her Pokemon taking damage, but rather because the attack was so artless, having no effervescence to its delivery. To demonstrate what she means, she then has Miss Mages use Magical Leaf, while Drifloon uses Ominous Wind to assist their flight, so that as they shoot towards Buizel, they're not only faster than a regular version of this attack, but also take on a haunting appearance, as the magical glow melds with the wind's deep purple coloration to create a more sinister aura. Knowing how damaging this combo move will be to his water type, Ash's Pikachu and Buizel use one of their own, combining Thunderbolt with Water Gun, though to their dismay, this only sends the leaves slightly off course before coming back around, as Fantina grins that Magical Leaf always hits its target, so blocking it is entirely pointless. This news makes Ash sweat, though keeping cool, Pikachu makes a tough call, waiting for the leaves to close in again before leaping in front of Buizel and taking the attack for it, since he knows it will do less damage to him. Worriedly, Ash and Buizel cry out for the rat, though standing tough, Pikachu merely gives them a thumbs up before firing off a second Thunderbolt at Drifloon. Like the first one, this does massive damage to the balloon Pokemon, with it letting out a high-pitched squeal, which Ash takes to mean it's losing stamina and fast. Seeing this as well, Buizel then adds its own Water Gun to the mix, with this strengthening Pikachu's already super effective move. That is until Miss Magus intervenes, using Psywave to blow the attacks back and save its partner. At once, Ash and his Pokemon reassess the situation, solidifying Miss Magus as the bigger threat in their minds, and to this end change tack, turning their focus on it. However, as Fantina rightly points out, such binary thinking will not do in a double battle, something she demonstrates by having Drifloon capitalize on the opponent's fixation with Miss Magus to close in and use Hypnosis on Buizel. Now Itten Pikachu's combo moves are out of the question, and to make matters worse, the electric type must contend with two opponents while its partner is asleep, a difficult feat to say the least. With a faint laugh, Fantina explains that doubling battle is Miss Magus and Drifloon's specialty, as it was this pair who won her the Grand Festival, before ordering another combined Ominous Wind and Magical Leaf. Knowing better than to try and dodge or deflect, Pikachu simply bodies this like he did the last one, with it being clear that these are beginning to take their toll. Nonetheless, like last time, Pikachu was also given a window of opportunity to strike back, choosing to use Thunder this time, with the move dealing damage to Miss Magus and Drifloon, and even managing to take out the latter. At last, things are starting to turn around. That is until Drifloon explodes. Having wanted to go out with a bang, Fantina had signaled her flyer to use Explosion as a parting gift, with the explosive force washing harmlessly over Miss Magus due to its ghost typing, while collecting both Pikachu and Buizel and sending them crashing into the wall. On the upside, being caught in an explosion is enough to rouse the water weasel from its nap, though it seems the opposite is true of Pikachu, as after enduring two tag team moves, this finally takes him out for the count, placing the burden of victory squarely on Buizel's shoulders. Seeing no point in stalling, Ash tells Buizel to go on the offensive with an Aqua Jet, and being in full agreement with its trainer, the Sea Weasel takes flight, shooting upwards in a cloak of water and soaring directly at Miss Magus. However, the ghost type has no intention of taking this hit, and so with a flash of its yellow eyes, redirects Buizel's flight path thanks to its Psychic attack, sending the orange Pokemon skyward, so that instead of striking its foe, it makes a rather painful looking collision with the ceiling. Then, as if this were not bad enough, when Buizel begins falling back to Earth, Miss Magus is waiting with another Magical Leaf, which strikes true, dealing super effective damage. Figuring that she's played with her food for long enough, Fantina then orders a final Magical Leaf, with the understanding being that this will spell the end for the earnest young challenger. However, being gutsy to the last, Buizel rises to its feet, while beginning to spin its tails, so that it can at least meet its defeat head-on with another Aqua Jet. Though, this gives Ash an idea, as he tells his friend not to attack, but rather to turn around and aim its twirling twin tails at the leaves. Truthfully, Buizel doesn't have a clue what its trainer is thinking, though trusting him all the same, it does so, with the result being that when the leaves make contact, they are shredded as if they had just gone through a lawnmower, drastically reducing their power, so that while they do still hit, it is in such a weakened state that Buizel barely feels them. Letting out a cheer, Ash exclaims that he knew Buizel could do it, while from the sidelines, Gary has to admit that he's impressed Ashy Boy figured out a way to neutralize Fantina's super effective move. Even the gym leader herself seems pleased with this outcome, stating that this is the je ne sais quoi she was looking for, though she's afraid it will not be enough to net Ash a win, since at best, he has brought them to a stalemate, where neither Pokemon can damage the other. Confidently, Ash retorts that he hasn't given up hope that Buizel can pull out a win, before ordering it to use Water Gun. Unfortunately, this goes just about as well as Aqua Jet, with Miss Magus simply using Psychic to send the stream of water shooting upwards and away from itself. Though, here something happens that neither trainer could have anticipated, as when the water begins to fall back down over the battlefield, it is enough like rain to trigger Buizel's swift swim ability. Seeing the change in Buizel's movements, Gary tells Ash what has happened, with the Ravenhead boy grinning that this is just the break he's been waiting for, before calling for Aqua Jet. With this speed amp, Buizel is able to move faster than Miss Magus can react, with a Sea Weasel Pokemon striking true and dealing decent damage thanks to Miss Magus' Achilles heel, its lackluster resistance to physical attacks. Refusing to let this weakness be exploited twice, Fantina calls for a Dark Pulse, with Miss Magus launching a torrent of Umbral energy at the water type. However, here Ash is a counter, having Buizel use Sonic Boom, since if the normal version of this attack travels at the speed of sound, then by using it while under the effect of Swift Swim, it should be able to hit Mach 2. As Ash had hoped, this proves correct, with the blade of compressed air clashing briefly with the Dark Pulse before exploding with enough force to send the beam right back at Miss Magus, causing it to take super effective damage courtesy of its own attack. By now the Ghost type appears to be on its last legs, figuratively speaking that is, with Ash reasoning that one more good hit should be able to take it out. The only problem is that with water no longer falling from the ceiling, Buizel's Swift Swim is beginning to fade, meaning it's now or never. Locking eyes with Buizel, Ash then calls for an Aqua Jet, and as the orange otter propels itself forward, it uses the last of its ability to drive a speed-enhanced headbutt right into Miss Magus' face, knocking the Ghost out and winning the battle. From her side of the field, Fantina applauds this upset victory, calling it très bien, though adds that Ash's double battling skills could use some work, as while he knows how to use two Pokemon at once, he has not quite mastered facing attacks on two fronts, a skill every trainer should learn, as they never know what sort of battle they may find themselves in. To this end, she suggests that if Ash has time, he should partake in the Hearthome tag battle, which begins in a few days, an offer the boy is happy to accept, since he's always looking to improve alongside his team. To Ash's surprise, Gary then states that he will enter as well, since it couldn't hurt to engage in a little friendly competition, and if truth be told, seeing Ash battle his heart out just now made him a bit nostalgic for his own career as a battler. Beaming, Ash calls this an incredible idea, and as he and Gary lock eyes, they both feel the same excitement at being rivals once again, even if it's just for this competition. And that's where we'll leave things. How will Ash and Gary fare in the Hearthome tag battle? Does either of them have what it takes to be crowned the winner? And which rivals, both old and new, will stand in their way? Find out as the journey continues.